Welcome to this week's Chamber Live. It's the 24th of November and we've just got over 1 week left to go until lockdown is lifted and we move into a new system of regional tiers and other restrictions and measures. The Prime Minister, of course, made the announcements on Monday as to what they will look like, and we'll hear later this week on Thursday, hopefully, as to what tier will be in from December the 3rd onwards. And there's a huge lot of speculation at present, with obviously the rates going down as quickly as they are in Greater Manchester, as to what that tier will actually be. But like anything I've learned over the last 7 or 8 months, it isn't over until it's actually announced, and even when it is announced, it may not be over then. So I don't want to get into any speculation about what may or may not happen. That's something else I've learned over the last 8 months when it comes to how the crisis is being handled. However, what I will say is, if you do want to find out what all the latest news, updates and information is as regard to COVID-19 and the Chamber response to it, our COVID page is live, as it has been since the end of March, on www.gmchamber.co.uk. Go there, go on the COVID tab and find out what all the latest news and information is. And no doubt we'll be hearing a lot more about that over the coming days. But what are we going to hear about today? Well, again, a usual wide range of updates and news and information and discussion from what's happening at Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce. We welcome back Susanna Cordoba to give us an update on the trade negotiations and Brexit preparedness. We've got Lucy updating us on Chamber support for growth package, and we're also joined by Carol Callan, the health and wellbeing consultant at Westfield Health, one of the Chamber's main strategic partners that we work with very, very closely. We've got Nathan with an update on Chamber space, including new service, and we close with Subra, head of research, giving a quick overview on what's currently going on in the economy in Greater Manchester and what may happen over the next few months. As ever, we are recording this. We will be putting out as a podcast and on our YouTube channel. Please mute your mics unless you're talking. If you do have a question, please use the chat box facility there, and we'll get around to as many questions as we possibly can. But without any further ado, what I'd like to ask now is Susanna Cordoba to join us just for a very brief update on what's happening with Brexit and getting ready for the end of the transition period at the beginning of January. Susanna, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Well, yeah, where are we up to with the deal or no deal? It's less than 50 days away, and we still do not know how it's gonna pan out. We know that obviously there were conversations at the level of Michel Barnier with David Frost last week. However, unfortunately, one of the members of the negotiating staff tested positive for COVID. So obviously that put a bit of a pause on the conversations. We said that yesterday on a tweet from Michel Barnier. They said that they were resuming conversations online. And they remain positive and optimistic that something will come out of that this week. However, I think we need to take a pragmatic and more realistic view of what that means, because there are still some sticking points that even now remain unresolved. And that's around the fisheries, the state aid, what they call the level playing field, which is more concerning from the European point of view in terms of how the UK will be managing inward investment. The jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice and other EU principles. So there is quite a few things that are not resolved yet, and we have to be realistic. Even if there is in principle some sort of, agreement, the reality is that it's less than 50 days away. There is a lot of details to be ironed, and as much as we want, I don't think we will have a full-on agreement by the end of this year. And the other major sticking point is with the internal market bill, which was introduced in September. And it was basically intending to breach international law by breaking some of the elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And obviously that did not come out well to the EU, and also had a knock-on effect on some of the US trade discussions. As we know that the president-elect in the US is not very keen, first on Brexit, and second, he has a strong ties with Ireland. So the latest on the internal market bill is it was rejected in the last House of Lords voting. However, it was requested that there were some amendments to the clauses that are breaking some of the elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The next vote, we know that it's going to happen sometime in December, first or second week of December, but it will be up to the Prime Minister whether he wants to proceed with the bill as it is, or he will kind of compromise and make the amendments to those clauses. So stay tuned. I think we might have something, but as I said, not with all the detail that we need to for businesses.
So it's sort of moving in the right direction, but obviously if there was another 6 months to go to the actual transition date, that would probably be better than, obviously, like you said, certainly less than 50 days. It's probably coming up to virtually a month off now, isn't it, really, before it happens? And of course, you've got Christmas and New Year in between, which is going to be an odd time for something like this to hit, and will probably impact on businesses. Susanna, the National Audit Office recently did a report, didn't it? I think in November on, it was released, I think at the start of this month, on UK preparedness and how businesses were prepared for the end of that transition period. What are the key updates that traders need to be aware of in terms of what they need to do? Because there's a number of different things here. There may be no deal, there may be a sort of half-baked deal, or there may be a deal in that's a little bit more firm. But they've still got to be prepared. They can't just sit back and just think, oh, it'll be okay, because it won't. What were you sort of seeing, and what else can businesses do from a practical element towards that?
I think the report was very specific on some of the key areas that are still like considered either on a red status or very high risk because of the complexity that goes behind those things. So one is just having the understanding that is 28 countries that need to prepare for this change. And within not just 28 countries is the businesses, is the governments, is the hauliers, the transport, the freight agents. So there is so many stakeholders that it will be impossible that everybody is going to be at the same level of preparation. So that's one. And just by considering that, we need to allow for delays are going to happen once we all get used to the new way of trading. The other thing is, obviously, in order to make it easier in the long term, the UK government launched new IT systems for enabling transit, inland sites that are no way to be ready by the end of this year. So those systems, unfortunately, it's going to take time for the integration between the ports, between the government. And I think we can expect that they are not going to be fully functional by the 1st of January, and that's going to cause another delay. The other thing is what we've been mentioning over and over is the customs declarations. We're going to jump from 50 million to 270 million. Businesses, still a lot of businesses, we're getting queries on daily basis that are completely unaware that they need to be doing customs declarations. And that in itself is not something easier. Businesses need to be aware of the complexity, and if they are not going to do it themselves, they need to appoint somebody else to do it. So, and obviously having the systems behind, the CDS, the chief, they are not going to be fully functional as we need them to by the 1st of January.
I'm just conscious you need to be aware on another event. You're running around all over well, not physically, but virtually via Zoom on all sorts of different calls and things at the present moment in time, Susanna. But just before we finish, Sharon's just put a question in the chat box, really, around the 3 key takeaways that you can recommend to businesses can do right now to help with the transition. So, one key takeaway, 2, 3, however many there is, but what would you suggest to businesses now to help them prepare for this?
Despite of the uncertainty, I would say do the basic checklist of what you need to make sure that you have in place. Your EORI number. If you're doing business in the EU and you're selling on DVP basis, just get a EU EORI number. If you're doing businesses through Northern Ireland, please be aware that you need another EORI number on that. Make sure that you understand what happens if we end up on trading on WTO terms or under a trade agreement, how it's going to impact your product, your commodity code. Are you going to be able to access tariff-free or not? What are the documentation that you need to to be doing from 1st January onwards, whether there is a deal or not? So I know there is a lot of uncertainty, there is a lot of information still missing, but there are things that you can do. Also, speak to your supply chain. You will need to understand where the components or things that you're buying from are coming from. As for rules of origin and preferential access to new markets, make sure that you also allow for delays. Talk to your transport, to your freight agent, understand if they have capacity for doing customs declarations for you when doing business in the EU. What are their contingency plans if they're facing, roadblocks and when transporting goods via road and so forth. So those are little things that you can do now to make sure that you're kind of putting some contingency plans in place and discussing this with your EU partners. Don't leave it to January because you think, oh, I still don't know what's happening. Don't leave it to the last minute.
Yeah, okay, that's excellent. And of course, we've got loads of help and advice. The trade team at the Chamber is always here to help with that. We've got the Brexit hub. We've got all sorts of information going out on a regular basis to people and all accessible through our website. Susanna, thank you very much for that. No doubt we'll probably be speaking to you again in a couple of weeks' time just to find out what progress, if any, has been made and getting a little bit more clearer, really, hopefully, fingers crossed, on what it may look like from the 1st of January onwards. But we'll let you get on. Like I said, you are literally very, very busy, obviously, at present. Always a busy team, the trade team, but at this time, where we are with Brexit coming up, even more so, just making sure we can get hold of all that information and send it on to people. So thanks very much, Susanna, for that. I'll let you go. That's superb.
Bye.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much. I'm going to ask Lucy to join us now, Lucy Mulligan, from our membership team. And Lucy, we've talked previously on Chamber Live about our support for growth package. But I think now more than ever is beginning to come out of lockdown next week, and there's all sorts of things happening. I think it'd be really good to do a quick sort of reminder and update and an overview really over some of the things that are mentioned and part of that package.
Absolutely, of course. The Support for Growth package is available to members of the Chamber, and it's a collection of services that we've put together to support businesses in growing throughout and after this challenging year. There's a number of different services that are included, and I'll just give you a very brief overview of some of kind of the most popular ones. So first we have the Chamber Finance Finder. So this is an online portal that can help businesses to search and apply for funding, finance or grants that you're eligible for. So we understand that, that landscape is very difficult to navigate, especially now, and it's something that businesses are relying on more and more is the kind of financial support. So access to this platform's free for members, and basically all you need to do is log on, kind of put what amount you're looking for, what type of funding you're looking for, what kind of you want your repayment terms to be. You can search for it, it'll display the results, and you can apply through the platform and track kind of the progress of your application. So it's a really great service, really streamlined, and it's got kind of access to everything you need to do to get hold of some of that funding and to see what's available to you. Another service we've termed Chamber PR. Now this is discounted access to a PR platform which can help you amplify messaging to your key audiences by linking you with the right journalists. So as you're probably aware, it's never been more important right now to keep in contact with your existing customers, prospective clients, let them know if your service offering's changing, if you're still open for business, how they can access your services. And this can really support you in doing that. We at the Chamber ourselves use this platform and we find it really great. So if you're interested in looking at how you reach new audiences in this time, that's a really good one to start tapping into. Another key component of the Support for Growth package is Cash Flow Manager. So this is a service offering from one of our members. We understand now that cash flow is a really big issue for many businesses. And as we come out of that phase, it will continue to be kind of a really big pressure point. So this service can help businesses with the cash flow to kind of look at those forecasts, see where things are coming in, and just to manage that a little bit more closely. And then finally, I'd say the final most popular element of the Support for Growth package is our recovery tracker. So with businesses kind of opening or planning to reopen post-lockdown, whatever that may look like, joining sectors that have already been trading throughout the lockdown, we're watching closely how quickly and in what way the economy is continuing to recover. It's really current and viable data on the impact of COVID and the path to recovery. And we need our members to contribute to that recovery tracker by completing the surveys. And then what we can do is present those results back to our members, giving them that market intelligence. The services of support for growth complement the existing membership services really well, and hopefully we can just really help to support our members through this challenging period.
Okay, and that was the idea behind it, the purpose, really. The name itself is it's a bit like Ron says, it does what it says on the tin, isn't it? It's there to support people in this growth bit, and it's important we don't lose sight of that. No matter what's happening at present in very challenging conditions, businesses are still doing business, and the idea is obviously to get them back to growth. There's a new addition coming along to this, isn't it? Seems like we're going to have a sort of gender reveal party. There is a new addition to our support for growth package. Can you tell us a little bit of what that is?
Absolutely. So this is actually really exciting. So we work with a national law firm as one of our strategic partners, which is Freeze. And to help support business owners during these difficult and uncertain times, they've decided to put a GMCC member offer in place, which is a free half-an-hour telephone consultation with their business recovery team. So the helpline is entirely confidential, and it's with their experts, so their legal experts, to provide some impartial, specialist and empathetic guidance to help businesses navigate through the current market conditions. So they've committed to helping our members with kind of a number of different areas. So that includes using kind of restructuring as a tool for growth. So if you're having to look at how you structure your business internally, they can support with that. They're also going to help with easing any pressure from HMRC lenders or landlords, so they can kind of help guide you through some of those difficult conversations. They're also looking at how they can overcome some of the supply chain or customer challenges. So if you're facing new challenges that you've not really dealt with before, they can kind of help you with that. Managing board or shareholder disagreements. Obviously, it can be kind of a tense time for businesses. There may not be agreement across the board, across the team, so they can help with how best to deal with those situations. And as I mentioned earlier, cash flow obviously remains a huge issue for businesses, so they can help advise on how to reduce some of those cash flow problems. So it's a really brilliant service, and I think it's a really good example of a business wanting to give back to the GM business community. They've been working with our members for a few years now, and they really understand that this is a brand new landscape for businesses, and they just want to give something back to our members. And that's what they're going to do. And I think it'll be brilliant. If anybody wants to find out more, obviously just pop it in the chat or email myself, and we can get you sorted out with accessing that line.
Excellent. So can members just get involved and find out more about the support for growth package in general? So
if you're interested in hearing more about the support for growth package or accessing any of the services that we've mentioned, it is in the COVID area of the GMCC website. So it's listed everything that you can access through that. Also, you're welcome to email benefits@gmchamber.co.uk, and that's picked up by the membership team. So if you've got any queries, want any support, just pop an email through to there and we'll make sure that someone gets back to you. But what we'd also be interested about is hearing about any services or support that you as a local business need. It's really important for us to make sure that what we're offering to the business community is actually what you need, what's going to help you through this time. So if you've got any suggestions, or if there's any specific areas where you feel like you need support, please do let us know, and we can look at how maybe we adapt our membership offering to look at how we support businesses with that. Or if not, we'll definitely be able to signpost you on to another member or another partner who can deliver that for you. So it's really kind of a member-led initiative, and we'd appreciate your feedback.
I think that's so important. And again, over the last 7 months since all this has started, 8 months now nearly, or whatever, we've come on and repositioned and developed new services as we've gone through. One partner we have worked with for a considerable length of time, Lucy, is Westfield Health. And in a minute, I'm just going to introduce Carol to that. But we do an awful lot of work with Westfield Health and vice versa, don't we? So it is a really strong partnership we've got with them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been working with Westfield Health for over 15 years, as have many other chambers across the UK network and the British Chamber of Commerce themselves. over the years, Westfield have supported many of our members with things such as employee health, employee wellbeing, employee rewards, and it's brilliant that we can have them on the call today. We've actually been using Westfield ourselves for about 5 years now, and you know we've dealt with the customer care team firsthand, and it's top class customer care. So that's really important to us to understand, you know, the kind of service that's delivered to our members as well. But I think what's kind of paramount, especially given the current climate, is that, you know, health and well-being has never been more important, especially when, you know, people are in their houses, they're not having that contact, they're not being able to go out. It's something that every employer should be thinking about with regards to looking after the health and well-being of their employees, and Westfield Health have really helped us to do that. So they've just been a joy to work with, and it's great to have Carol on the call today.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Lucy. Carol, I'd like to welcome you today. Carol Calland is a health and wellbeing consultant. No pressure there whatsoever from Lucy's fantastic introduction. But yeah, I'll just back up everything Lucy said. You know, as somebody who uses Westfield Health as well, it's an absolutely fantastic service that you give. What have Westfield Health been doing to support their customers through this pandemic? As Lucy said, there's a range of everything really, and obviously the bit you're looking at in particular is health and wellbeing. But what in particular have you been doing to support customers through the last 8 months or so?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Lucy, for that very kind introduction. Yeah, really, Chris, it became apparent very quickly that with our expertise, our corporate clients would be looking to us to help them support their staff at this time. So our marketing team kind of dropped everything they were doing, I guess, and put together a whole raft of resources. I mean, it's in our COVID resource centre, which I'll put some notes of how to access that in a second on our website. But it was very much that we felt that, okay, we're here, we've got all this expertise in our team, and we need to share it with our corporate clients and with anybody else that wanted to look at the website to get access to that. So they put together, and it's grown and grown and grown over the last, gosh, is it 8-9 months now? A series of guides, and they've called them toolkits, which I think is quite a nice way of looking at it really, and they cover everything. So from people working at home, you know, and the problems and advantages that can cause, even up to things like healthy eating and back care and sleep. So I looked this morning about how many actual toolkits have we got, and we've got 19. And I think one of the most important ones we've called a mental health support bundle. And in that bundle, there's again a raft of information, something as simple as a document beautifully put together to leave about for staff, or to email out to staff, as to where to go to signpost somebody to get help if they want it. So lots of really basic information like that, right down to, you know, what you should be eating for lunch if you've been sat at your desk all day, and you know, so physical health, but very important mental well-being. So I know the feedback I've got from my clients, that we're emailing this out all the time to our clients, and so it's always there on our website. I've had really good feedback about the content, and I can honestly say it has been superb. We've put together some really useful information.
Okay. Have you seen the demand increase for this or over the last, particularly thinking about the health and well-being bit of the service?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So my role at Westfield Health.
And yeah.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, go on. I was just going to say, now, how does that relate to your role as that health and wellbeing consultant?
Very much. And when the pandemic began, obviously for about a month, my desk went quiet. It was like we were all in shock, weren't we? And gradually it dawned on people what they might need. And so certainly I've been much more busy than I thought I would be. But in the past, I've been really busy selling our insurance products, which the chamber have, and you know, so you get your glasses paid for, go to the dentist, all of those things. But we've always been a wellbeing company as well, and it's been the wellbeing side of our business that I've been the most busy with, definitely. So things like employee assistance plans, where staff can ring up and access ad hoc counselling there and then, 24 hours a day, leading on to proper structured face-to-face counselling if it's deemed necessary. And we're doing that for like, sometimes it's less than £1 per month per employee. So very, very cost efficient way of putting something in place for people. And last year, Chris, I think I provided 2 employee assistance plans across the whole of the year, because people were buying health cash plans and it was included in that. But cost is a big issue now. So thinking, well, I can scale all of that back. What can I do that's really essential? So I must have sold 12 of those plans. I'm staggered, but they're with Health Assured. It's a superb service. And again, the feedback I'm getting back from my clients that have put it in place is people are using it. They're reassured that it's there. So yeah, very much it's been, I feel more than ever that in the last few months, I'm really providing things that people really need rather than we'd love to have it.
Yeah, yeah. And that leads me on to my next question, really. How important is it? Do you think having that mental health support, that well-being support is for a business? I think up to now, it's probably been a nice to have. I'm guessing very much a need to have.
Absolutely. And what I'm finding is that I've got my existing portfolio of like 150 businesses are contacting me, wanting to know what the footfall is to those counselling sites, so we can give people that information. Say 12 people called this month, relationship matters, work matters, whatever it's been about, mental health, and giving them all that information. So certainly that's important. But I think I've never been a HR manager, and most of my clients that I deal with, I'm dealing with HR managers. I think it's been one of the toughest jobs ever at the moment. And being able to have something like an employee assistance plan has been such a great tool for them to direct people to. But as for why I think having mental health support's important, I've always been an employee. I worked for 34 years for HSBC. I've worked for 6 years at Westfield Health. For the last 15 years of my career at HSBC, I was a manager, and I loved my job, but it was a tough job, and it got tougher and tougher and tougher. And it certainly wasn't a culture where you could very much talk about mental health. It would have been much easier to ring up work and say, I'm going to be off, I've got tonsillitis, than to ring up and say, I'm really not good today. So there was very much that culture that you didn't talk about mental health. And I became ill, and I tried to talk to my line manager, and you know what, poor man, he didn't know what to do with me. I know he didn't. We had a standard, an EAP, so called Open Line, so I could ring them, and he suggested that, but he'd no training, he'd nothing around it. And in the end, I had 6 weeks off work. I was crying out for help, and it wasn't there. So eventually I was off, and I seek my own counselling, and I got the right medication, and I got really well again, and went back, and and had a successful end of my career there. My partner still works for HSBC, and 6 years on, the culture has certainly changed. And a big part of that change was the group CEO, the world group CEO, posting a video about his own mental health, and he'd had time out because he'd been mentally unwell. And that drove then this cultural change, I think. So it's a very different place to work now. But, they, alongside lots of other companies now, have mental health first aiders. They have, of course, the ease plan. But it's this culture that it's okay now to put your hand up and say, do you know what? I'm not well mentally at the moment. I'm feeling stressed. And just asking for some help in the early stages without getting as terribly ill as I was, that I needed 6 weeks off. So having that support and that training from a personal point of view, I've experienced when it wasn't there, or only partly there, to seeing now in Westfield the support that there is, and it's very, very different. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does, and more besides, Carol. That was a very honest answer there, and the number of times over the last 12 months or so talking to people who've got similar sort of stories. A few years ago, nobody would have dared to sort of say things like that. And I think that's part of where we are as a society, and where business is now as well. The
There's
more that
never
we can
been
hear.
a better time to sell health and well-being. Yeah, the profile is so high, from Prince Harry starting it a couple of years ago to now the pandemic. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, you know, it's part of the service you get from Westfield Health as key strategic partners for the chamber. There's a link gone in the chat box there for help and advice with that. And again, you know, whatever size of business, we're obviously using HSBC as the example in that, whether you've got several thousand employees or just a couple of other people or whatever it is, don't be afraid to ask for it. And if you're a chamber member, you've got an access point straight into somebody that can offer those services as part of.
I'll just quickly give you an example. A good friend of mine who's a chamber member of East Lancashire Chamber, she has a health cash plan with us. And I think Liz pays something like about £6 a month for her cover. And she has her own business. And she's had, I know this year she's had, early in the year, some new glasses. She's had some dental work, but she's used it as well for the counselling service. So it's, even if you're just a one-man business, Westfield, you know, can help you, as long as, like you said, along with the HSBCs of this world, it's everybody really. It's there for, and you get Carol Calland to help you, whether you like it or not.
Certainly inspires people and lifts a very gloomy day there, Carol. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for your honesty in that answer as well. And I think that's important, actually, because sometimes people come on and say things without actually having lived through it. And obviously, you've faced some very tough times in the past, come through it, and you've used that to the advantage as well. And obviously, the support of Westfield Health behind us, that we can get now out to our members as well. So, Carol, thank you so much for that. Okay, cool, excellent. I'm going to ask Nathan to jump on now, and he's just got some updates about some new services that we can offer through Chamber Space. Nathan, you there? Yeah. Just give us a quick update on what things like. Because obviously we're in this lockdown period, but Chamber Space is still open, isn't it? And you've just looked at a new way that we can use the space within Chamber Space for a new offer about mediation services.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and hi everyone. We are still open. The venues are able to open for events for up to 30 people if they're deemed essential, and we've got an inquiry that's taking place over at the law courts. The press annex is in our building, so we are staying open for that, which is really welcome, and obviously we wait to see what will happen on Thursday with regards to tier information, although I think we might have an idea. But we're still going on, and things are getting a lot busier now. I think a lot of positivity about live events in the new year, and certainly from Easter, people are starting to get in touch, which is very, very refreshing. I mean, the service that Chris was referring to is not a new service. Actually, it's something that we have a lot of experience in, both in delivery in the venue, but also as a service that we provide to members. But often I've found when I'm talking to businesses, it's not something that they're aware of as an option, and it's mediation and arbitration is one of the things that's been growing during the sort of lockdown and post-lockdown period. I mean, we as a venue have always been a popular location for barristers, solicitors firms to hold mediations for clients, but we noticed at the end of the first lockdown that we were contacted by a lot of different solicitors firms because the number of mediations were increasing, and also with social distancing in place, where they normally would hold it in their sort of offices, they were looking for a sort of larger neutral space to hold them. So we gained a lot of experience in that first post-lockdown period, and had about 6 or 7 different mediations and a full arbitration in the venue. So as we've noticed that becoming more popular, we've just been looking to promote our space because it's an extremely suitable space for this to happen.
Yeah, and there's a couple of links there through to the web pages around this service. And it's so important because it's that neutral space bit, isn't it, Nathan, as well as the safety bit. There's two elements to that mediation bit: the neutral space, so either party doesn't feel as though they're in, walking into the other person's territory. But then that space bit, and that's something that you've really focused on. I've seen for myself when I've been in the office last time, about making sure that is that safe space, and that will continue, won't it, until such times that the restrictions are changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really important is that a venue that you choose for a mediation is understands the process. So it's not a customer service facing role, role for our staff, as it would be if you were coming in for a drinks reception. People going into mediations don't necessarily want you to have a big grin on your face and be bobbing your head in the door every 5 minutes to check they're okay. It's a very different dynamic. You've got to be flexible as a venue. You've got to be very discreet and confidential. And because we've got so many spaces within the venue, it's also easy for us to keep parties as separate as they need to be when they're breaking out of the mediation process, and then give them a comfortable and secure and confidential environment when they're going back into it. So that's why I think the venue is used. I mean, overall, we actually offer a wraparound mediation service, which you'll see in the link that Leanne's just posting. We have an in-house mediation service delivered through a partner of ours. I mean, I've seen in the news increasing, and I'm sure everyone else has, the court systems are absolutely overloaded with cases and business. The backlog is huge. The cost of going to court, is not insignificant. And one thing that mediation can offer, especially as we get more and more disputes, as the times are difficult and financially challenging, you'll see more and more disputes arise. Mediation gives a real option for people to, number one, save costs, number two, save time. And we're talking about mental health and well-being. There's nothing more challenging to mental health than having to go through court process. And all this can be solved by a trained mediator, in a sort of safe environment where both parties can control what is going on at the time. And I mean, check out both of those links. So it's twofold. One, we can actually help businesses within members and non-members as well, access that mediation service and have a safe space to do it. But also, if you're a legal firm and you're looking for a safe, understanding space that knows the process, then Chamber Space is obviously a very good option for you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much, Nathan, for that. And again, it's a great example of the work that Nathan does in Elliott House, at making it such a flexible workspace, meeting space, and everything else that we can do. And also now begin to come forward with services that utilise that space. And as he said, we've seen an increasing number of circumstances where you may need to undertake one of those services like mediation that we can offer. So thanks very much, Nathan. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job keeping the building going, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it won't be too much longer before we can start to welcome people back in greater numbers. Maybe having to be socially distanced, but certainly getting people back in. And it is people that is the lifeblood of that building, and it's a great place when it's busy and full. So, like I said, fingers crossed, not too long before we can see that again. I'm going to finish off today's event by asking Subra to join us. Subra's our head of research, and we're just in the final stages of the current quarterly economic survey for quarter four coming through. And obviously we talk about in the past, don't we, Subra, about what the current local economic situation is looking like, and one thing or another. What are you seeing at present from some of those results and from our most recent recovery tracker? What's the sort of economy looking like in Greater Manchester?
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chris. So I think you have sort of summarized it. Where we are now is we find ourselves in a lockdown, a second national lockdown, followed by more than 3 months of restrictions, which were local or regional. Parts of Greater Manchester have had restrictions from the 31st of July. And so it is hardly surprising that we find that the results of the recovery tracker becoming more and more dire as we gather the data into November. So the latest data set is for the period from the 26th of October to the 13th of November. That was the 7th recovery tracker. The 8th recovery tracker is now on the field. So one of my colleagues will post a link to the survey. So if you haven't already filled it in, please do fill it in. It is extremely important. And as Lucy had mentioned, this is about business intelligence, but it is also about formulating the policy and the campaigning work that we do. It is partly because of Chambers lobbying that discretionary support has been made available to businesses on top of the standard support measures like small business rates relief. So that's just a plea to get everyone to fill it in. So the balances relating to demand, which is what we often start off with, I'm not going to share any slides today, has gone down. So we were in the -20s in October. So the latest data set shows that the balances are now in the mid-30s. A similar situation with international demand as well. And international demand has been volatile for quite some time for various reasons that Susanna had mentioned. You do not know whether there is a bit of stock taking and stock buildup happening at this time. The cash flow positions have been weak for a long time, so it would be actually very difficult to discern whether there is going to be a buildup of stock as we enter the Brexit period. So the balances are worse than they were in October, and to an extent, the concerns that businesses have not changed since April. So the majority of businesses, over 75%, are still worried about the impact that COVID has had on their customer revenue, has had on their sales. Cash flow remains the second most important concern. The one interesting thing that I find, which is slightly different from what we found out during the first lockdown, is on staff availability. So now there is mass testing. There are lots of people without any symptoms of COVID, but are actually COVID carriers. Now the newspaper reports would confirm that. That's, I think, is reflected in the results, because on average, between April and say September, only about 20% of the businesses said staff availability was actually a concern, but that has now jumped up to the mid-40s. So clearly that means, more and more people are probably taking time off. It could be because of mental health issues. We have had a difficult 6-7 month period of working from home in isolation. I myself, I'm under the second lockdown. I'm not allowed to leave my house. It was the same during the first lockdown as well, because if you have an associated medical condition, then you have to stay indoors. So that does have mental health impacts. But it could also be indicative of the fact that there are people who are now testing positive for COVID and have hence had to isolate themselves for 14 days. So that's what the results are looking like. As I said, this is an ongoing piece of survey. So the next big event for us in terms of the recovery tracker is the quarterly economic survey for the 4th quarter, which we launch on the 16th of December in the morning. So if you would like to join that, please do register for that event.
I think it's so important. And again, please, just to emphasise that, look out for details about the event on the 16th. Please come along to that and find out, what actually happens to the information that businesses supply to us. It's absolutely fascinating and so important what Subra does to that stuff. One final thing, obviously, it's going to be a real important decision and an announcement on Thursday as to what tier we end up in, whether that's Greater Manchester, the North West, or whatever it is, and it's hugely important, isn't it? Because if it is tier 3 and all the hospitality is still closed apart from takeaways, theatres are still closed, and one thing or another, that's just prolonging it even further. And I think you made an important point in that, Subra, that we've had some form of restrictions and measures in Greater Manchester virtually all the way through, haven't we? If it's not tier 3, can you see things beginning to pick up with the economy? Or if it's tier 3, will things just carry on as they are? I suppose that's a bit of a how long's a string question, but it is important.
Yeah, so clearly we await confirmation on Thursday, but if it is tier 3, then I think we are going to have further economic problems at a regional level, but also at a national level. Why is that? Within the hospitality sector, there are some restaurants, bars, etc., who might take up to a third, in some cases up to 40% of their entire annual revenue in the 6-7 week period between the middle of October to the 1st of Jan. Okay, so this is the peak trading season for hospitality. So we know that over the last 6-7 months, despite Eat Out to Help Out, takings have been roughly half on average. And then if we now add on top of all of those difficulties and constraints, a further reduction in revenue because of a forced closure of hospitality businesses, then it is inescapable that we are going to have some impact on businesses, on the economy, and of course on jobs.
Okay, so thanks very much, Subra, for giving us that sort of update. And again, unfortunately, when you hear a message like that, Subra is uncannily accurate. So I can't even pretend he's going to be wrong on that, because unfortunately that's what the numbers and I think common sense is telling us as well. So, you know, like I said, all eyes will be on that announcement on Thursday as to what tier we end up
just add one point, Chris.
Being in after December this one.
So I have said that there has been lots of economic damage, and I'm looking forward to the Chancellor confirming my predictions tomorrow when he announces the spending review, because we are going to get a whole lot of economic forecasts tomorrow. So having the Chancellor endorse your opinions is good.
Excellent. Well, there we go. What more can you say about that? And again, that's so important, though. Spending review tomorrow, we'll be commenting on it, and I like the way that Rishi Sunak will be confirming what our head of research, Subra, says on that. But obviously, what Subra's saying, it comes from you, our members, and all the businesses and everything that complete the survey and the evidence we get from people. So we do stuff with this data that sometimes isn't obvious. So it's so important. And we've got somebody that's absolutely, you know, top of the class when it comes to dealing with it and coming up with the key messages. So we'll see what Rishi says tomorrow and whether or not he agrees with Subra. I know who my money's on and who I trust any day of the week out of those two. Anyway, before I get too political about things, we'll call a halt to today's Chamber Live. We've overrun a little bit, but it has been absolutely jam-packed today. So many things to talk about, so many services, so many ways that we can help businesses through these challenging times. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all our speakers, and especially to Carol as well from Westfield Health for joining us today and giving us an insight into what help and support and services we can give to businesses, as I said, through these challenging times. And thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.